You've seen us conquer the Johto region with our ragtag team of very tasty Pokemon. But obviously I couldn't leave the challenge there. Once we have become the champion, we awake in our bedroom and our mother tells us to visit the professor, and he ends up giving us a boat ticket. Now I think we deserve a nice holiday after that stress, but this is no holiday. Once we find this man's granddaughter, our voyage takes us to Vermilion City of the Kanto region. A whole new region means 8 new badges to claim, but I did my research this time and the level caps are all over the place, so instead of going for the logical Surge first, I head south towards Fuchsia City and opt for Janine as she has the lowest cap. Our team may look slightly different as Crackling went over the level cap during the Elite Four, which is not great as he would have absolutely dominated this poison gym. The Ninja Girl leads with Crobat and I with Scramble. They miss a Supersonic, which is clutch, and as an ancient power does a third. A Wing Attack does little as another brings it low, but we get the Omni boost. I know she'll full restore from here, so I get greedy and go for another, and we get a second boost. She still outspeeds despite us being +2, but she misses the Supersonic, and another ancient power can take it down. Wheezing comes out, and we can outspeed an Oko with extra sensory. Next up is her Ariados, and again, a single +2 extra sensory takes it out. And then her second Ariados gets the exact same treatment. Her final mon is Venomoth, and it stands no chance as Scrambled can pick up its first sweep of the region, Okoing and claiming victory and our first badge of the Kanto region. Back north in Vermilion City we can take on the electric leader Lieutenant Surge, but just like Janine, Crackling will be a huge miss as he is immune to the electric type and super effective against it. But my strategy is either genius or uninspiring. I'll let you decide. He leads with Raichu and I with Calamari. I outspeed and set up Toxic Spikes as he paralyses with Thunder Wave. I want to get a second layer up, so I stay in as they just go for a double team. And we do break through the power to get the spikes up. That is huge. I think Calamari's overstayed their welcome, so I switch into Shet to resist the incoming shockwave. Our Signal Beam misses, gotta love double team, and we get paralysed by Thunder Wave. They go for another double team and thank Arceus, our Signal Beam hits, but it does nothing. Raichu goes for a third double team, but thankfully we connect, bringing it to half. A Shockwave does little and a Signal Beam brings it into healing range, and as they heal we miss again. There is a lot of back and forth. Well, they whittle Shet down as we get full power or miss, and we are brought too low, so we have to switch into our trusty starting pair on a resisted Shockwave. The next turn I set up a light screen, and what a shock, we get paralysed. We then don't attack for 5 turns thanks to the para, but thankfully we get off a Petal Dance, bringing it low. This was excruciating as we are just brought to just 5 HP before healing with Synthesis, but eventually we can take it down with another Petal Dance. Electrode is out next and gets badly poisoned by our spikes and immediately goes for the double team, and our attack misses. We set up screens again as they continue boosting evasion, and we don't end up attacking a single time, but they eventually fall to poison damage. Magneton is out next and it brings us below half with a mirror shot and lowers our accuracy before we can set up light screen again. It then goes through a double team as we can heal up with Synthesis. I decide to switch into Ribeye, who can thankfully take it down with a Fuse Strength. His penultimate mon is Electabuzz, and I switch back into Calamari, who takes the low kick very well, and I pivot into pair on the Shockwave. They set up a light screen as we are fully paralysed, and a low crit brings us below half before we can set up our own light screen. I heal back up with Synthesis as Poison brings them below half. The next turn we can't move, but Poison takes it down. And its final mon, Electrode, is out. And what a shock, it goes for double team. Shockwave does little and we're fully paralysed. The next turn we both set up light screen and I go for a body slam, which with poison damage leaves it so low that the next turn they heal up and cure the poison. It is an absolute slugfest with loads of back and forth, but eventually we prevail thanks to body slam. Toxic stall is an awful tactic, but is it worse than para hacks and low inaccuracy? I'll let you decide. That's 2 badges down. We can then head further north to Cerulean City, but before we can take on the leader we have to sort out the power plant issues, and when we get there, basically someone stole a part and it's obviously our job as champion to find out who it is, and what a shock, it was Team Rocket who are behind it. We find the culprit on the Nugget Bridge and their Golbat is no match for our bull. We return the part, power is restored, we're the hero yet again. But we still need to find the gym leader, so off we pop up to Cerulean Cape, and she's there on a little date. But obviously we have to interrupt because our gym battle is a lot more important than young love. She leads with Golduck and I with Calamari. I of course set up Toxic Spikes as we get hit by a Psychic that does just under half. I switch into Shep on another which gets a crit. A discharge next turn almost KOs as we are brought below half. She heals up, another discharge brings it back into the red and paras. She switches into the Quagsire, so I of course have to switch, but I pivot into Scramble to avoid the EQ before switching into Pair as they set up Rain Dance. The next turn we can KO with a Petal Dance. Then the Lapras comes out. Our Petal Dance leaves it on about a quarter before we're put to sleep. Poison brings it into the red and we switch into Calamari and we can finish it with the Poison Jab. Next, the weak Golduck comes in and she full restores. The Poison Jab does about a quarter and we can switch into Scrambled on a Psychic which gets the drop. I stay in and the Water Pulse does huge damage as I go for Ancient Power but no boost unfortunately. I switch into Pear who stays asleep for 4 whole turns before waking up and setting up Light Screen. We then go for a Petal Dance, locking us in and KOing the Duck. The final one, Starmie, comes out and it goes for Confuse Ray, but thankfully we break through and a Petal Dance can crit, getting the Oko, claiming our 3rd badge. It got a bit dicey towards the end there, but Pear is coming in clutch. Pressing onwards, we can head east through Rock Tunnel to emerge at Lavender Town where we can get an upgrade to our Poké Gear, and this allows us to wake up the Snorlax back in Vermilion, and after defeating it we can head through Diglett's Tunnel to Pewter City where our next gym awaits, and the Rock type specialist leader Brock starts with Graveler. Calamari uses Surf, I don't bother with the Toxic Spikes and we can Oko. Rhyhorn is out next and we can again outspeed an Oko with a Surf. The Rock Snake Onyx is out next and it gets the same treatment with a Surf Oko. Kabutops is his penultimate mon and I stay in and a Surf and it does just under half as a Rock Slide does about the same. I Surf again which leaves it on 1 HP and we are brought low. So I switch into Pair as they heal up. The next turn we can Petal Dance for the KO. This brings out his final Mon and his other fossil, Omastar, but it stands no chance as it too gets OK'd by Petal Dance. Too many 4x weaknesses, or do you think we just counted him very well? But I am not complaining. That is half the badges down. No messing around now, we are on a roll and it is time for Sabrina. She is scary and always has been. Her Alakazam is no joke. But the challenge of getting through her gym was even harder. Man, I hate these puzzles. Anyway, she leads with Espeon and I with Shep. A Signal Beam does just under half as they go for a skill swap. I go for another which leaves it in the red as a Psychic does huge damage. We fire off another Signal Beam as they heal up, and the next turn we can take it back into the red as the Psychic leaves us on just 10 HP. But I know we outspeed, so I stay in and KO. Mr. Mime comes out next, and I obviously have to switch this time into pair on a big Psychic. The next turn we both use Light Screen, and then we get hit by a Psychic again as a Body Slam does about a third. It then uses Mimic as we can get healthy with Synthesis. Psychic now does little, so we can fire off a couple more Body Slams for the KO. Thankfully, she only has 3 Pokemon, but that means her last mon is her Alakazam, and the first thing I do is heal up and get healthy with Synthesis as they set up Reflect. A Psychic does just under half, but then we can set up our Light Screen. Another brings us low, but we can, get healthy again with Synthesis. We can fire off Body Slam, which does little, but it gets the paralysis. I heal up again to get to full as they keep firing off Psychics. Their Reflect wore off, so I go for a Body Slam, which took it below half before they recover with their Berry. We both set up our screens, and there is an awful lot of back and forth, but they get the Spadef drop, which is so unlucky. I switch, not wanting to risk, into Scramble on a Psychic who manages to get off a Sweet Kiss, confusing it, and it hits itself in confusion. I go for a Fly as they hit themselves again, but because they were brought low, they full restore, and now they're not paralysed, they outspeed and set up Reflect as I go for another Fly. A huge Psychic brings us low and our Fly misses. We have to switch, and we do, into Crackling, and we get red as they use Energy Ball, which brings us low. I can't switch anything into this thing, so I risk it as their Reflect wears off. I go for an Ice Shard, which gets the KO from that range, coming in clutch and defeating Sabrina. That was close, but another badge down. We head straight to Celadon to take on our next gym, and its leader Erica, the Grass Queen. She leads with Jump Luck, and I with Shep. A Discharge does about a third as they set up the Sun. They then outspeed to get a Leech Seed off before a Discharge gets a crit and KOs. Victory Bell comes out, and a Leaf Storm does massive damage, and a Discharge does literally nothing, but it does get the paralysis. I switch into Scramble as they're fully paralysed, and then Extra Sensory gets the crit and KOs. Our luck might be turning. Her penultimate mon is Tangler, and they go for the Ring Out, which does a third as we fly, which does about the same. She then goes for Ancient Power, which brings us low, and another Fly leaves it below half. I switch, this time into Ribeye, who takes the Ancient Power on the switch and can outspeed and KO with Thrash. The final mon is Bellossom, and our Thrash does over half before their recovery as they set up the Sun again. We're confused from fatigue, and I don't want to risk it, so I switch into Calamari, who gets hit by a Solar Beam. The next turn, another brings us to just 6 HP, and the Poison Jab brings it deep into the orange, and thankfully poisons. I know she's going to heal, so I go for another, which brings it below half, and I switch into Crackling, who takes a Giga Drain on the switch, and a crit, super effective, Stab Ice Shard can KO the Bellossom. Crackling, honestly, those last 2 gyms, incredible, exquisite, elite. We did get awfully lucky though, so I'm not going to mention it. Next up on the chopping block is Blaine, the second last gym, and after heading south from Pallet Town we can reach him inside a cave. The fire specialist leads with Mag Cargo, and I with Calamari, and the 4-time super effective Stab Surf gets a crit Oko, but I'm not sure that the crit mattered. Magmar is next, and I go for another Surf, and yet again it can just take it out in one. His final mon is Rapidash, and we can outspeed and Surf, and it leaves it deep in the red, and a Flare Blitz does little. He then heals up, prolonging the inevitable as another Surf brings it back low before we can finish it off. That's our 7th badge. We are just smashing it. Back on Cinnabar Island, we can tell the gym leader that we are ready to face him, and face him we do in our showdown at the Viridian Gym against the ex-champion, the final leader Blue. He leads with Executor and I with Shep. We fire off a Signal Beam which can get the clean Oko. Rhydon is out next and I switch into Scrambled on the Earthquake and then switch again into Pear on a Stone Edge, but we can outspeed an Oko the next turn with a Giga Drain which heals us all the way up. Arcanine is next out, one of my favourite ever Pokemon, and we switch into Calamari on the Flare Blitz which does a lot more than I would have liked. The next turn we Surf which brings it well into the red and another Flare Blitz brings us low. I know he will heal so I stay in and go for another which brings it fairly low again. I switch into Ribeye who can take the extreme speed well thanks to Intimidate and finish it off with the strength. Machamp is out next and I can't stay in with Ribeye, so I switch into Pear and it takes a Dynamic Punch on the switch, so I have to switch again into Scrambled who gets the same treatment. It is looking absolutely dire, but our last hope is Ribeye. I switch it in to get the Intimidate as a Stone Edge brings us to about half. I then pivot into Pear and hopefully I can survive a -1, and we do. So I switch into Ribeye for the Intimidate again, and thankfully we survive the incoming Dynamic Punch on just 17 HP. Crackling comes in and the Stone Edge, now being nerfed, does little and our Earthquake can crit an Oko. Gyarados is his second last mon and that's an easy switch into Shep as they Dragon Dance, which is scary, but as we are scarred we can still outspeed an Oko with a Discharge. And his final mon Pidgeot is out and a Discharge brings it low and gets the para, and it is fully paralysed the next turn, so I can just press Discharge and beat the final mon of the final Gym Leader, meaning we have conquered another region. Couple of lucky moments there, but you make your own luck, don't you? We obviously have one final battle to prepare for, and the first thing on my to-do list is to evolve our Scrambled. Oak finally gives us the Rock Climb HM, so we can go back to the National Park in Johto and climb some rocks to pick up the Shiny Stone, evolving Scrambled into a beautiful, magnificent Togekiss. And after levelling all of our team up, changing some moves, getting some items and giving them a pep talk, I pray to Arceus before making the grueling trip up Mount Silver, and at the peak we can battle Pokemon Trainer Red. He leads with his trusty Pikachu and I with our Crackling, and as it is hailing that means our evasion is boosted thanks to our Snow Cloak ability, and it has instant impact as Pikachu misses an Iron Tail, so we can just Oko with an Earthquake. His Blastoise comes out and I switch into Pear on the Focus Blast and it misses. Our luck is incredible. I set up a light screen which helps us tank the incoming Blizzard. Next turn I go for a Giga Drain which does over half and heals us up nicely as another Blizzard brings us back to half. But the next turn we can finish it with another Giga Drain. His Zard is out and I switch into Scramble on the Flare Blitz which does a third. The next turn an Ancient Power can KO and get the Omni Boost. Lapras comes out next and an Aura Sphere does huge damage, leaving it deep in the red, and we survive a Blizzard and the Hail on just 9 HP. I switch into Shep, wanting the clean victory as he heals up. The Discharge does over half and we can take the Blizzard fairly well, so the next turn we can finish it off. His second last mon is Snorlax, and I switch into Calamari on the Crunch. Poison Jab does little as we are brought below half. We have one last chance and we do get the poison. Of course we have to switch after, this time into Crackling, but they are brought low by chip damage and unfortunately full restore. Our Earthquake does about half, so we can just outspeed and go for another the next turn, which thankfully gets the KO. His final mon is Venusaur and we outspeed and an Ice Fang falls just short of the KO, but we get the freeze. He full restores the next turn, but another Ice Fang brings it low yet again. He wastes all his full restores, delaying the inevitable, and we can eventually bring it low and KO, beating Red and answering the question that yes, you can become the greatest trainer using only tasty Pokemon. I think we were definitely fortunate there, and not just in that battle, in others the RNG was in our favour, but this squad is unreal. But all this talk about food is making me hungry. I thank every single one of you for watching, and if you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe for more wacky Pokemon challenges, and if you have anything to add or a run to suggest, let me know down below. And with all that, stay classy and have a wonderful